Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get started shortly. We like to get started right on the hour because we've got a lot to talk about in a little bit of time. And we're just so thankful that you're joining. Um, we ask that you remain muted during the meeting, but we will have plenty of time for questions and answers. You can always put your questions in the chat, and we'll have time at the end to talk about that. And you can always use the chat function to introduce yourself, where you're calling in from, and say good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Morning, Gail from Indianapolis. We have Shirley from Rochester. I'm reporting in from Connecticut. We have two of our speakers, one at our Federation office in Queens, New York, and one in Orange, California. Boston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles. I love seeing all the different places where we're coming in from. Let's get started so that Sister Mary Ellen and Sister Mary Elizabeth have enough time to chat about their experience with the Global Coordinating Group. As we start all of our Dear Neighbor series meetings, we're going to start with our opening prayer, which is our consensus statement. Stimulated by the Holy Spirit of love and receptive to the Spirit's inspirations, we move always towards profound love of God and love of neighbor without distinction, from whom we do not separate ourselves, and for whom, in the following of Christ, we work in order to achieve unity of neighbor with neighbor and neighbor with God. In humility, the spirit of the incarnate word. In sincere charity, the manner of St. Joseph, whose name we bear. In an Ignatian Salesian climate, that is, with an orientation towards excellence, tempered by gentleness, peace, and joy. And this is found in That All May Be One, which is a book that was edited by Martha Malinsky and produced by the ACSSJ, which is the Association of Colleges of Sisters of St. Joseph. We also love to share one of our maxims. And this morning, we're having Maxim 30. And do the same in the practice of hope. When in your actions and plans, there is little likelihood of success of human aid and more difficulties oppose you, trust in God far more. In the high school students translation, which I always love, when someone tells you can't be done, prove them wrong. And I chose this morning because I feel like this feels like food for the soul these days. So I'm going to exit out of the screen. We'll stop sharing for now, so we can introduce our speakers. We have Sister Mary Ellen Kane, who is the Executive Director of the U.S. Federation of the Sisters of St. Joseph. And as our Federation Executive Director, she acts as our representative at the Global Coordinating Group, which they'll explain more. And we have Sister Mary Elizabeth Nelson, who is our outgoing co-chair of our Leadership Council. She just completed her last meeting. But she's not done yet. We're going to keep her as a representative with the Global Coordinating Group as they are still in the midst of planning next meetings. And she is a sister of St. Joseph from Orange. So I'm going to pass it on to you now.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's nice to be with you. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the origins and the structure of the Global Coordinating Group and who's on it. And Mary Elizabeth is going to speak a little bit about some of the things that they have done and how we proceed with our agenda. So just to say that the Global Coordinating Group really began in May of 2008, when Sister Lorraine Delaney, Janet Gagnon from Maine, and Kathy McCluskey, who at that time was the Federation director, they acted as a planning group, and they invited congregations and federations leaders to join them to attend a meeting, as they said at the time, to move forward the need and the desire for some coordination of an emerging global relationships and activities. So that group, the first meeting of the Global Coordinating Committee, was held in Le Puy from September 18th to October 2nd in 2008. At that time, they crafted a vision statement. And I'd like to read to you the vision statement of the Global Coordinating Committee. And this is what it says. In the spirit of our founder and co-foundresses, we leaders of the four federations, Italian, United States, Canada, and France, and the congregations of Lyon, Annecy, Chambéry, and Argentina, in response to the prompting of the Holy Spirit, wholeheartedly agree to accompany the unfolding and emerging global relationships as we coordinate new and diverse expressions of our CSSJ mission and charism. It's important to note that the Global Coordinating Group is not a new government structure, but rather a coordinating group, as stated in the vision statement. At present, all the members of the coordinating group are leaders in their congregation or federation. That's how it is at now. It may change in the future. So every aspect of our global CSSJ family is represented. The Canadian Federation is represented by their executive director and one elected congregational leader. The French Federation, the same, their president and one elected congregational leader. The Italian Federation, the same, the president and one congregational leader. The same for the US. I am the president of the Federation, and Mary Elizabeth, as Kristen said, as one of the co-chairs of the Leadership Assembly and the Leadership Council, has represented us as our member on the Global Coordinating Committee. Although Mary Elizabeth has gone off the council, she is going to stay on the Global Coordinating Committee for at least another year, and I'll tell you why when I continue. The Global Coordinating Committee meets yearly, and it originally began meeting in person once a year in Le Puy, and we usually meet in conjunction with the board meeting of the International Center. And we do that because several of the people, like myself, are on both boards. Mary Elizabeth is only on the Global Coordinating Committee, but it saves me and several other people, the Federation directors, from having to make 2 trips to France. And again, mostly that saves us money. So during the pandemic, of course, we began meeting on Zoom and decided after the pandemic that we would meet 1 year physically together in France and 1 year on Zoom. So this past, we usually meet in the fall, as I said, in coordination with the Global in association with the International Center board meeting. So we met in October of this year in Le Puy, France, and we met in person. Next year, we will meet on Zoom. And how the meetings are set up is that each federation or each global area takes a turn setting the agenda of the meeting, setting the time and place of the meeting, doing the prayer, and making sure that we have an interpreter. These meetings are usually held in 3 languages. most of our European people, we North Americans fall behind in this. Most of our Europeans, even if they're from Italy or another European country, speak either French or English. So we always have the meetings in French and English. And because our Argentinian community is represented, we do have a translator for Spanish. Next October, when we meet again, the North American contingent, the US and Canada, will be responsible for planning the meeting. This past meeting was the French Federation, and the meeting before that was the Italian Federation. So it's our turn again, and it comes up fast. So that is why Mary Elizabeth is going to be staying on to help us plan that meeting for October of 2025. So we're very grateful that Mary Elizabeth has volunteered to stay on and help us. And again, we will be doing that in conjunction with the Canadian Federation. One of the things, before Mary Elizabeth talks a little bit more about specifics, that the Global Coordinating Committee worked on together, and I'm sure most of you have seen it, is the logo for the 375th anniversary year. And all congregations throughout the world have been invited to use that logo on their stationery, on posters, however they want to use it. It's been translated into a number of languages and made available to all the congregations. So that's one of the things that the Global Coordinating Committee has done together, is trying to unify ourselves in the celebration of the 375th anniversary. So now I'll ask Mary Elizabeth if she could give us some specifics on what the Global Coordinating Committee did at their last meeting and what they talked about. So I'll turn it over to Mary Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Mary Ellen. As Mary Ellen said, that we met in October, and we always start off with prayer. And the theme that they choose is basically off of scripture, and they go, but what I really love is listening to the heart of the sisters as they're doing the prayer. It just makes me feel more connected than anything else. After the prayers, then we each take turn and talks about what's been happening in our section of the world. And what I want to do is give you a little bit of a flavor of what happened from each one of the different representatives that were coming there. So I'm going to start off with Canada. So when Canada came up, they talked about how their federation is made up of 4 different congregations, and how each one of those congregations, while they might be facing some difficulty, they still have the energy for the mission. And they said the mission is still very, very important to them. And while they're diminishing in size, they are not diminishing in spirit. Okay. One of the things that they talked about is that while they're looking for people to buy their property, they're always making sure that the developers have a clear project that they want to make sure that it is still connected, that it's not going to be used in something that's contrary to what the sisters had. For instance, you would not want to have a building that is doing something that was totally contrary to the mission of the Sisters of St. Joseph. So they really make sure developers are doing the correct thing. And they're also trying to keep the property, if possible, ecologically intact. So those are things that they're looking at. But the other 2 major things that the Canadian Federation is working on is working with the Indigenous people and seeking unity and reconciliation. And the other thing is they have a big project on respecting water. So that's the Canadian Federation. Next, I want to talk about the Argentina. Sister Elsa was talking about how they are starting their chapter here. And one of the things they're doing is they're working with both the lay people and sisters together in chapter. There is more lay people than sisters. And they think this has really been a great compliment. And this is the theme they chose. It's called Listening to Life embracing your vulnerability, and celebrating communion. Both the sisters and the lay people are working hand in hand, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And one of the things they also talked about is how there is so many young people who are thirsting to know the charism of the sisters, but yet their major challenge is that they don't have people to work for the formation. And so how can we as help with, maybe sending information or whatever, but that's what I always find out is when we meet there, we're listening to it, and then we try to say, oh, maybe we can do this or do this, whatever. The other thing is that with the people in Argentina, is they're trying to connect with other communities that's also in that area, the religious. So it's not just staying with Sisters of St. Joseph. They're checking to see who else is there and what can they do to help work and connect together. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about the French Commission area, and which is comprised of Annecy, the French Institute, and Lyon. And what I'm going to really talk about is what's happening in Lyon. Judy Donovan, who was just newly elected, was talking about one of the major challenge is that there's 4 sisters in their on their council, and all 4 of them are from a different continent. And so that is also very unique. And it's also the first time they don't have actually a sister from France on their council. And so they're finding that something new and yet also something challenging at the same time. One of the things that the Lyon sisters decided to do is they're going to go out and visit, and they're going to be using the synodal type of aspect of listening and then talking and listening and continuing. And the theme that they're going to use is from their chapter, which was the women at the dawn who went to the tomb, and then who in the place of their difficulty, they find life again and look for signs of resurrection. This is very poignant, is when you talk about some of the sisters, for instance, are in Lebanon and what they're experiencing there. And one of the things that Judy Donovan talked about is that even though they have elder sisters there and they want to say, maybe we need to bring them back to France so they could be safe, the sister says, no, we need to be here with the people. So there's so much with the spirit of St. Joseph. We stay, we do not run away, we continue. She also talked about how there are 460 sisters living in 70 different countries. And of the 70 different countries, they're experiencing war, terrorism, violence, and instability. And they say, well, how do we answer some of this? And one of the things they decided to do is come up with a new project, was called To Rekindle the Flame. And this project is where they're going to send sisters living from different terrible conditions to another area where they will learn the language of the people and working in the some type of mission work so they can learn the culture. So for instance, if you're from Egypt, you might go to Mexico and you have to promise that you're going to try to learn the language of that place as you're working, and you're going to be there for at least a year. So this way that you're really learning to also to maybe prepare yourself for mission life to go out in other places. As I said, the 4 places that they have designated are Mexico, United States, Egypt, and France. So we wish them well as they're starting this new program. And this is for their younger sisters. It's not for their elder sisters, their younger sisters, because they want them to be able to experience other cultures and be able to prepare themselves to move on. Okay. the Italian Federation. The Italian Federation is mixed of three different congregations. Thank you. And one of the things that they were talking about is, well, the sisters in Italy are diminishing. Their sisters in Africa is flourishing. And one of the areas that they're in is the Congo, Central Africa Republic, and Chad. But one of the major problems they're having is how do they support them economically? They're finding some hard difficulties with that. Some of the cases is how do you even get the money over there, you know? And so one of the things they're trying to do is continue building missions and working as they're trying to support. And one of the areas that they really are hoping for is building new schools so that hopefully the people will be able to be lifted out of poverty. So those are the major, and of course, in the United States, Mary Ellen basically told you what we've been doing, but I talked about what happens here in the United States as we are starting to diminish. How do we, as we're getting smaller, how do we also look at leadership? And how do we prepare the newer members for leadership? But also the question is, do the younger members want to take on the leadership? And if that doesn't happen, then what are we going to do? And so there's been, what we've been kind of kicking around about it is, well, maybe there's something we could do within the Federation. And can we find some, you know, as a matter of fact, I was just going to say last week, we decided we were going to form a committee to just talk about it. What are some different concepts that we can do? And of course, as you know, if anything that we do when it comes to like maybe the Federation be as a commissary, you have to work to Rome. And so it's not just like snap your fingers, say we can do this. And the reason why you have that, we have some members of our Federation is some are diocesan and some are pontifical. And the congregations that are pontifical, they definitely need to go to Rome. So, and we don't want to say, well, we will exclude the pontifical and only work with the diocesan because we're all to be one. We don't want to be separate. So anyways, that's just a little bit of what's happening. And then also the very end part of after listening to this is that we have our representatives from the UN NGO that comes. And that's right now is Barbara Bozak. And she talks about what she is doing in and how she is trying to get legislation. And she always comes to the leaders and say, what is it that you would like us to focus on? And we, a couple of years ago, we just talked about water rights, because water rights impact so many people. It's not just one area. So she takes that and she writes, you know, if she attends the meetings, she writes the little proposals and stuff like that. But I think one of the major thing is the impact of being able to have somebody speak for the Sisters of St. Joseph, not just in one nation, but globally. Anyways, that is basically my report.
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Thank you very much for giving us some of the nitty-gritties of our last meeting. I think what you got from what Mary Elizabeth said and what I have said is that the building of international relationships is really very important to us. The Sisters of St. Joseph are in 49 countries throughout the world. Some of those countries, there may be 2 sisters, but we are international. And that understanding of our internationality is really important for all of us, especially as here in the United States, our numbers decrease. And as Mary Elizabeth said, in India and Africa, they are increasing and increasing. The United States at this point has the most sisters of any country. However, the second largest number is in India. So we are really expanding in the global South. And what we do at the International Center Board is we do talk about how can we, especially those in the global north, use the resources that we have to help those in the global south. And many times that's not so much physical resources or money, but our experiences, our expertise, and our education. And how do we use that to support each other? Also, you can hear from what Mary Elizabeth shared. We're all in the same boat on many, many issues, talking about the same issues. How do we form our laity, who are so much involved with us everywhere? There are associates, and they may call them by different names in different countries, but there are lay associates affiliated with every congregation throughout the globe. And the question is always formation. And again, the question in some of our poorer nations is the formation of our novices and those who are in early formation in our religious congregations, and how do we share resources on that. So that is some of what we've done and what we are hoping for in the future. But just to say, the importance of developing these international relationships and our understanding of ourselves as a global community is really the part of the purpose of the Global Coordinating Committee. So now I'll turn this back to Kristen. We have a few more minutes, and we'll let her ask questions and bring us to our next part.
Yeah, I want to open the floor to see if anyone has questions, either if you feel more comfortable putting them in the chat, you can, or if you'd like to come off mute and share. We'll just pause for that. I do want to know, I see, oh, Alis, yeah, I'll let you go and I'll speak after.
I know this, I don't want to get political, but I know that there are many, many issues that come up in different countries, and they often have to do with politics, and war and violence. Sister Mary Elizabeth, can you, were there some common issues that came up from all the different regions in terms of maybe political strife or social, that were common among all of the regions?
From the years I've had been going there, definitely water rights. It's been brought up in several different places, as you could tell. Also, the rights of women, because so often women have been denied. It depends on which country you go to. And then it's just overall is the government taking advantage of the less fortunate. That's all over the place.
And Indigenous rights, Mary Elizabeth.
Oh yes, definitely Indigenous life, true.
I also wanted to note that Sister Gail Trippett is on this call, and she's doing a lot of work right now to connect our global sister community, and is working very hard on creating sort of a repository and a website that highlights that. So I want to thank you, Gail, for all of your work on that, and that I think is directly related to a lot of the work that's happening at the Global Coordinating Group. The hands of many go into the conversations that are happening at the global level.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, this is Sharon White from Philadelphia. Hi, how are you? I've been in Honduras, and as most of you know, the one of the head water defenders, Juan Lopez, was murdered. And now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the entire Aguan, Toccoa, Colon Valley is underwater. And the Jesuit priest where we went, and I had the privilege of being part of the Federation there. I'm so happy that we supported him, because he's a Jesuit that has just put his neck out for the people to get the mayor to resign because of the murder, and all because of defending the water. he's I mean, I believe that our presence there, I do believe this, as well as the letters from other congregations that I was able to take, that gives him the support and the solidarity to be in solidarity that we can offer and the accompaniment, just to know that we are behind him and others, the bishop, who is speaking right out politically. And and again, it addresses the land and the water, but our presence through the Share Foundation is is huge. And I can't say enough how I really felt that. I mean, it almost sounds like a patronizing or something, but I really felt like I was representing the Sisters of St. Joseph, the Federation, in the way the whole thing evolved. And I just want you to know that people are very much aware of us there now. And we handed them those books with all the statements and we even gave them pens that said "One in Love." So I just want you to know that my question now is, with all that, that's just by way of information. I see that there's one sister in Honduras. I don't know who she is or where she is. I'd like to know more about that. And the other thing is, I'd like to learn Spanish. And I want to know, is there a place, a school that anybody would recommend? And you don't have to do that now. Maybe anybody listening to this would. I'm studying Spanish for the past 2 years, so I just need to really get it and get the language and be there someplace. So when we get off of this, if anybody could give me feedback, I would really appreciate it. And anything that you would like to learn from me about what's going on with the water in the land in Honduras, I'd love to be available to share the story. So thank you.
Sharon, I'm just off the top of my head, it's not a school, but you might want to think about living with one of our congregations, Spanish-speaking congregations. I'm thinking Mexico, the Leon community is in Mexico, and that might be the easiest for you. Of course, we also have the sisters in Argentina. I mean, when we talked about everyone, Argentina is not a federation because Argentina, the Sisters of Buenos Aires are the only CSJ congregation in Argentina. But
Right.
since they are the only mother house that we have in South America, they are represented in that. But again, I would suggest that you make contact with the sisters in Mexico or in Argentina. I'm sure they would be happy to have you.
Thank you. Because you said Formation Sisters going down there, and I thought, oh, would I be included in being able to go to one of those countries? That's what my question
Yeah,
was.
you just live and work. I'm sure they'd be glad to have you to come and live and work and learn the
Okay.
language that way.
Thank you.
Immersion is always the best way.
Correct.
Krista, I think Gail had her hand up.
Yeah.
I just want to say before you that, Sharon, we always said wherever there's one sister of St. Joseph, there's all the sisters of St. Joseph. So even though you're there by yourself or where you are, you have all the sisters there backing you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Gail.
I just wanted to add another source that I found that's really helpful is the PIMSLAR program. And it doesn't just do vocabulary and language, but it does culture. And I mean, it's just an entire program that I found is excellent. So if you're interested, I'll send you the link because I'm currently working with that right now.
I have all the CDs. I've been doing that too. I'm anxious to get immersed. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
You're right. It is wonderful. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome.
So we are at time. This was a wonderful discussion. I know these are bite-sized little conversations that we're having about what's happening at the Federation, but these conversations can always continue offline. We can have further conversations in the future if this is ever of interest. So you can always contact us. Our email is info@cssjfed.org. And we are happy to continue some of this conversation or answer any questions that you may have. I did get a question about what you just spoke about, Mary Elizabeth. Do you have notes? I feel like a lot of that was off the cuff.
Actually, I just wrote that it's just before we got on. So I do have notes. So
Okay, great. So we can send those out and get those to you. And
just give me a week to type them all up, okay? So
so you literally just wrote them.
yeah, I hand wrote them. So
Okay, so we'll
Thank you.
have those notes. Just that if you email me, I can make sure I get it to you. And just to say, this is going to be our last Dear Neighbor series for 2024. But we'll be back January. I think I just pulled up the date and it literally went out of my head. I believe it's January 15th. We always meet on the third Wednesday of every month at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, and
9 o'clock.
9 a.m. Pacific.
It is the 15th.
Yeah. And it is January 15th. The topic is still to be announced. We're trying to confirm a few people. But once that is available, you can always get that information on e-news. If you do not receive e-news, you can sign up for it on our website. There's a form if you scroll down to the bottom, and we can make sure that you're getting our e-newsletter that comes out every month. But we want to say a huge thank you. Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Thank you, Mary Ellen, for presenting on this. There was a lot of information that I haven't heard, and very interesting to hear about what's happening globally. And thank everyone who's on this call. I see a lot of familiar faces every month. It's great to have this community. And we thank you for coming and for all of your work that you do for the Federation. So have a blessed rest of your day, a blessed rest of your year and holidays. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the invite.
All right. If anybody wants